I'm inspired by a quote by Buckminster Fuller, who said, if you want to change something, don't attack the existing reality. Instead, build a new model that makes the old one irrelevant. I believe that the sharing economy is one of the elements that's going to make our current dysfunctional economy irrelevant and bring in a new one that works for the people, by the people, and benefits all the people.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. I'm in West Vancouver, near Vancouver, British Columbia, and my guest today is David Van Seters, who's president of Sustainability Ventures. David, thanks for joining me. And
Thanks.
Tigger, you heard your name calling too.
This is our Wheaton Terrier. He's very old, but he's a lovely
He's a
dog
sweetheart.
and a great friend.
Well, while we're speaking of things that are very old, I want to just tell people the story of this beautiful piece of furniture that was sitting here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was carved by the great, I don't know how many greats, grandfather of my wife, and a Dutch wood master crafter. And it's a beautiful old bench. It is not so comfortable to sit on. I don't know the design of having these things stick into your back, but lovely to look at. And it has this phrase, this Latin phrase, alta peto, means reach for the highest.
Well, it seems to me that with your sustainability ventures and the talk we heard from you, you're living up to it, even if it wasn't just in your family. David, we met you through a wonderful presentation that you had done called The Unstoppable Rise of the Sharing Economy, which is sort of like, that's a bold thing to say. And it was fascinating, just fascinating. I had gotten tastes of the sharing economy via the net, but what you just opened up my eyes to something explosive. So give us the highlights of what is this unstoppable sharing economy?
Well, the sharing economy is literally a very age-old practice. We've been sharing for thousands of years, potluck dinners, public libraries, but something new has been happening in the last few years. So it's a combination of new digital technologies and social media and smartphones that allow us to collaboratively access idle, wasted assets in ways that we have never thought about or wasn't possible before. Sure. And the unstoppable part of it is that in many cases, we are allowing people to access these once zero value assets, space in our homes, our cars, our tools, and then generate supplemental income. Mm-hmm. And so that ability to create a livelihood out of sharing and also help save people money by accessing the things they need instead of having to buy them really creates this unstoppable momentum. And we're seeing the sharing economy exploding in virtually every industry sector, in business, in consumer world.
I want you to give us examples of that, but the thing that strikes me is that the marriage of fast internet, iPhones, and that sort of thing, and its ubiquity and everybody's using it and so on, that thread, along with what do I call excess affluence. We are a consumer society with tons of stuff and tons more that we don't need, and we are coming into a spot where the millennials, the younger folk, either don't have the money or don't think they need to own the houses full of stuff that their grandparents do.
Right. Yeah, the millennials, the under 30 group, is the one that is embracing the sharing economy perhaps more than any others, because they're moving to what we call an asset light lifestyle, where they're free to not be encumbered by a big house and lots of stuff, and therefore the need to generate a higher income to pay for all that stuff and to pay for the storage of all that stuff. And instead, to live, instead of living an asset-heavy lifestyle, to live an asset-light lifestyle and be free to travel to different places and access the things that they need, but not having to purchase them themselves.
What you named was the model moving from ownership to access. You just
That's
need the
right.
access when you want it, and
That's
that's
right.
all.
And we're seeing that the millennials are doing this in a big way. For example, in the area of car purchases, in the last 5 years, we've seen a 26% drop in the purchases of cars by people under the age of 30. That's just in the last 5 years. That is a precipitous drop in purchases of vehicles. And what they're doing instead is accessing those vehicles through new car sharing and ride sharing companies.
We've noticed that in Canada. We have, there was something like Car to Go, a little car. And it's like, I realize that's a rental. I mean,
That's right. A short-term rental.
And a car share co-ops and other
That's right.
means of doing it.
That's right. And now in the United States, we're seeing a huge proliferation of ride-sharing enterprises like Lyft and Uber and Relay Rides and Get Around. We don't have the insurance rules sort of figured out in Canada yet, but I think it will come soon.
I'm just going to come. I mean, it's going to be the trends of wherever the trendsetters go, it's going to start pushing, and the young people are going to demand it.
That's
They're
right.
going to demand it.
That's right.
So, can you give us the flavor of some of the other realms where you start, that other realms where people are sharing? And you started us out with accommodations.
That's right. And in fact, the poster child for the sharing economy is Airbnb, which is the place sharing website started by two university graduates who wanted to set up an internet business, and they had graduated from the Rhode Island School of Design, and they moved to San Francisco, the heart of the Silicon Valley, to make their fortune. And they were staying in a place in San Francisco, and the landlord decided to raise their rent, and they couldn't afford the old rent, and they realized that to solve that, they had heard about this design conference that was happening in San Francisco, and there were no rooms. And so they thought, wow, we could offer short stay accommodation and breakfast by buying air mattresses and putting them in front of the bathroom, in front of the kitchen, and in the living room. And so they did that, and they went to the news media and actually got some really good publicity, and people started to, and they developed this fledgling website called Airbed and Breakfast. And people started buying airbeds and solving temporarily this problem of a shortage of rooms. Well, anyway, this carried on for a little while until someone reached out to them and said, well, I don't really want to do the air mattress kind of and breakfast. I want to just rent my whole place. And so then they said, wow, okay, we'll add a feature for that. And it didn't quite happen exactly, take off from there, but a few months later, then all of a sudden, people were starting to use this site, and they shortened the name to 6 letters, Airbnb. And now they have over 600,000 rooms, mostly whole places, in their inventory, and they're growing at over 1,000 new places a day. And in the next few months, they will become larger than the largest hotel group in the world, the Hilton Hotel Group, just to show you how viral it is. And they did that all within about 5 years, whereas the Hilton Hotel Group took 95 years to get to their status as the largest accommodation company. Great. And they had to build 3,900 hotels. Well, Airbnb didn't even have to buy one. They just went to the crowd and people offered their own space. And of course, they are getting supplemental income, and people who stay at an Airbnb often pay less than they would at a hotel. So it really is a self-reinforcing kind of enterprise.
And in more interesting places.
Yes.
In the potential of sort of seeing the city like, or the place like you're there.
That's
rather,
right.
Rather than the tourists on top at a
Yes.
at a hotel that looks like a hotel anywhere.
Yeah, and you get to meet local people, so it's a unique experience. And that's one of the other great benefits of the sharing economy, is that every time there's a sharing exchange, people meet each other and it builds community. So there's a real strong social benefit that happens through sharing economy enterprises as well.
I think that meets, it seems to me that meets a need just as deep.
Yes.
Because we feel so isolated in our separate little lives, in our separate little
Yeah.
spaces, our separate little cars.
Yeah.
That any way to bridge those gaps is wonderful.
People are hungering for that. Absolutely. They really want to make a connection with people. And it's often said that the reason that people start participating in a sharing enterprise or a sharing activity is for financial reasons, for the supplemental income or to save money if they're accessing it. Right. But what causes them to continue is the surprising amount of benefit they get from the community connections that result. And so on a ride sharing, someone gives them a ride and they chat along the way, and then they find out that they both like tennis. And pretty soon they say, well, let's get together to play tennis. And they have now met a new friend. Yeah. And those kinds of occurrences happen all the time. So people say that the benefits, the social benefits that they get from the sharing economy are much, much bigger than they thought they were when they started it.
That's exciting. I mean, I have this sense of we're watching something that's just emerging that are going to have ripples way beyond what we can even see yet. I mean,
Absolutely.
You've got some hints of that.
This is just starting
big.
out. I think we are only at the first 5% of the potential build out of the sharing economy because once people start understanding this idea of, wow, we could just take these idle, wasted assets and collaboratively allow people to access them either for free or for supplemental income. And then they start thinking of other areas that they can do it. And as someone who has been tracking the sharing economy, almost every day now I hear of a different manifestation, a different enterprise that people are starting. I just heard one this past week for a company that is doing a sharing service for umbrella use in buildings. So their idea is to go to the hotel industry and say, well, you give your guests umbrellas, and we know that they often don't come back, they come up broken, they don't know how to track them. Well, what if you could just get them from a stand and use your room card to access them, and then you bring them back and you swipe your card again to show that they're back. And if they're used, they're not returned, then you get charged for them. But if they are, then it's all great. And so another little sharing enterprise. But so many different examples.
We've videoed. I'm going to ask for more examples. We videoed folks that have a sharing tool library. Household, yard tools. Give us some more ideas.
Yeah. So the tool library is a classic one because there 80% of the items in an average home only get used once every month. So when you've got that poor utilization, why own it? Just allow people to collaboratively access it. So there's a sharing site that for kitchen goods, like for doing canning, where you have to have a bigger equipment, or you want a high quality juicer. And you don't want to buy it, you just want to do the juicing once in a while, so you access it. And there's a website to find people who are sharing collaboratively or renting these kitchen assets. But So there's space sharing. We talked about car sharing and ride sharing. But what about land sharing? So people who have land, giving access to people who want to use that land. And that could be someone's backyard. So you think of an 80-year-old woman who used to garden in her backyard, and she's now a widow. She doesn't want to do that, but she's happy to have someone else use her backyard and access that land, grow a garden, and give her a few of the fruits of their labor as a thank you for accessing their land. And it could be a young millennial that is living in an apartment building down the street who's coming to access that. And it builds community. She sits on the back stoop and watches the gardeners do their thing, all kinds of things.
And they're keeping an eye on her too.
Well, that's right.
That could be a real advantage.
That's right.
We have an aging population.
Yeah.
Just have.
So, and it also happens not just in the consumer, but in the business world. So, one that I really like is 123 Load Board, which is a website to allow people to access empty space on 18-wheel trucks or train cars. The average 18-wheel truck travels about, has on average with 28% space on it. And so on this website, a business can find out that a truck is leaving from their town in the next 3 days and traveling to another town where they need to get their product to, and then can access pallet space on that truck and then collaboratively fill that truck, taking hundreds and thousands of trucks off the road by just increasing their capacity and making each load much more profitable.
And more efficient. I mean, this is using our resources wisely.
That's right.
I mean,
absolutely.
The principles are all.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, these are great stories.
Well, there are things like waste sharing. So people, when they want to throw something out, they could go on Craigslist or eBay, but often when it gets to sort of near zero value, they tend to just say, well, let's just throw it out. Well, what if there was a place at the local transfer station or recycling depot or landfill where they could drop off the items that they think could be reused to someone, and then they're collaboratively accessed and then put into a new retail channel or repurposed, and all of a sudden given a new life through the crowd, and take that item out of the waste stream.
We visited The Exchange on Orcas Island, does exactly that. You know, it includes not only things like you'd find in a thrift store. I mean, I found that thrift stores won't receive, say, building materials.
Right.
Restore in Portland will take the building materials, but The Exchange on this island, and I think island consciousness helps us here, takes anything that anybody thinks might even have half a use.
Right.
Or an interest, and it's just there.
Yeah.
I mean, it really invites a lot of creativity and so on. Yeah, that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So there's even a new company coming out that is going to create a smartphone app which allows you to track all of your purchases, and in fact works with the retailers to automatically track when you buy an item. And because at the time that you purchase it, that's when you know the photograph, you know the make and the model, the everything about the product. And so you save it to your purchased items. And then when you want to rent them through a sharing site, or you want to sell them because they have no use to you anymore, then you can just, with the press of a button, put them onto those sharing sites or Craigslist or eBay or a number of other sites, or send them back to the retailer if there is some kind of a take-back program for parts of the materials of those products. And so all kinds of new ideas that are emerging.
You give me the hope that at some point somebody will be doing appliances and other things that are intended to go back and get refurbished, and, you know, so the planned obsolescence ends.
Absolutely. Well, so someone is thinking about that, and there's now 400 repair cafes where you can go and have coffee and with friends, repair items that would otherwise be thrown out. And often they are small appliances, and people tinker with them, and it's kind of like going to the coffee shop with more purpose to it. And they keep things in use and in circulation.
What fun!
Yeah.
I mean, it's just. I mean, the tinkerers. I'm pleased that there's. I mean, we need them. It's been so frustrating to have some little part go out, and it's like this is a perfectly usable something just fixed.
Yeah. So it started in Holland in 2009, and somehow they figured out a way to make it community building as well as waste reducing. And the formula of having a little cafe just created that positive appeal. And then it sort of went viral, which is the way that so many of these sharing economy enterprises grow.
Yeah, it's like
so
it's the right
viral.
time
Yeah.
at this moment. What kind of challenges, what kind of hurdles are there to having this be adopted? I say this because when you did your presentation, you gave us hundreds of logos of startups, and not all of those are going to make it. And
That's right.
And I found in using our Free Cycle site, same it's sharing. It's like I have stuff in
that's
it,
right.
and you cannot sell anything on that list. It's only for giveaway.
That's right.
Right. We had to have enough people that there could be some interest in this
That's right.
this weird object thing that I
That's
had.
right.
So what are the hurdles that you're
Yeah.
finding to adopting this?
So one of the key elements for success in a sharing economy enterprise is that there has to be sort of a blitz to get a number of items listed so that there are a few hundred items that people have, and also at the same time cultivating a few hundred people who might want to access those. So that so long as they can make a connection, so they go on the site and they are, let's say they're looking for a home for their dog on a sort of a kennel in your home sharing site. They want to find someone who's got availability to take their dog at the time that they need, and as long as they can make an exchange, it will build and go viral. But if they can't make an exchange, they often will leave the site and say, this isn't really working, and not come back. And so it's really important for these new sharing economy enterprises to build up a critical mass of haves and needs so that the interaction can work, and then it goes viral from that point. But a broader constraint or barrier to the sharing economy is local government regulations. And that's a big challenge that the sharing economy has to overcome. Because the sharing economy is so viral and will be disruptive to the incumbent industries like car manufacturing companies and hotels, they will look negatively, and they might speak to their local government agencies and say, well, this is an unauthorized use of space for a sort of unofficial hotel, and they're not paying the hotel tax, so we should get rid of it. And government regulators don't like disruption either, and so their tendency is to try to shut it down. And my message for them is to say, no, because the benefits are huge from a sustainability standpoint. It builds community, it creates new jobs, it reduces environmental impacts. We want to celebrate it, but we do need to manage it, and we probably do need to introduce a tax for it and manage it properly, but we shouldn't shut it down. But in a number of areas, the sharing economy is being regulated to a severe degree, and there's a need to work with government regulators to find a middle ground that works for everyone and is fair and reflects something that is really unstoppable anyway. If you can drive it underground, it will go underground,
Sure.
but it will not stop once the community sort of sees the huge benefits for them personally.
And so, with governments, particularly municipal governments, being starved with the downgrade in the economy since '08, it would seem to their benefit to put
Yes.
on those taxes or whatever it is. In fact, you had mentioned that Airbnb, Portland, was doing something, is that right?
Yes. So a number of cities have tried to make Airbnb illegal and to constrain it. So the city of Portland, they have actually come up with rules to say, no, we're not going to make it illegal, and we are actually going to start to tax it and manage it. But we do believe that it does help to improve employment opportunities and livelihood improvement for our citizens. So it, on balance, is a good thing, and we're going to manage it and allow it to grow. And I think we're seeing that happening. Amsterdam is another city that has embraced it. The country of Denmark, the city of Seoul. It's really happening in many different places around the world that you wouldn't expect.
Wow, that's exciting, and that's progressive. I mean, it always takes some leaders in places like that to. In our last 2 minutes, are there other things that we haven't covered that you want to make sure we do?
Well, what I'm inspired by is people talk about the fact that there's something wrong with the way our economic system works, that it's working to create a few who are very, very wealthy and the rest who are making no gains or are actually losing ground. And the sharing economy feels like a really positive counterbalance to that. It's very dispersed. The power is not controlled by any one entity, but by thousands and thousands of micro-entrepreneurs who are gaining supplemental income. And it's often the people who are below the average household income in each community that are engaging most actively in the sharing economy. So it has a tremendous economic benefit. And it's one where we actually could see a shrinking of the size of the economy while making people better off. And that's really hopeful. I'm inspired by a quote by Buckminster Fuller, who said, if you want to change something, don't attack the existing reality. Instead, build a new model that makes the old one irrelevant. I believe that the sharing economy is one of the elements that's going to make our current dysfunctional economy irrelevant and bring in a new one that works for the people, by the people, and benefits all the people.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, and thank you for sharing that with us. I think this is exciting, and we'll have to kind of do an update with you every year. It's like, how many more new enterprises are happening in what kind of realms?
Yes.
So thank you for this.
Yeah, you're most welcome.
It's really, really inspiring.
Great.
Here with David Van Seters. The sharing economy, it's exciting. Well, go take a look yourself. You're watching Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing.